Well, hi everyone, Sean Humphreys here. Welcome to this edition of the Take Charge of Change podcast. Well, in this edition of the podcast, I'm going to draw out 8 principles from an article in Outside Magazine, a great article, great magazine, about enhancing your effectiveness. You'll enjoy this edition of the podcast. So many of you listening probably have picked up Outside Magazine. Maybe you're a subscriber. It's a great magazine. Covers off, adventure, sports, lifestyle, health, all kinds of things. And this particular article was titled 8 Rules to Do Everything Better. It was by Brad Stulberg. And Brad has an interesting background. He spent the last 5 years interviewing top performers in elite sports and business and other areas. And he came up with a set of principles or foundations to make all of us better. And they're easy principles to apply. Well, maybe, right? They're easy principles to understand, maybe more difficult to apply. And he was inspired by Ray Dalio's book called Principles, a best-selling book. Dalio's book was on, fundamental principles in the area of investing, decision-making, and managing companies. And he tried to apply the thesis of that book to managing our personal lives. That's kind of interesting. So what are the 8 principles that he came up with? Well, the first principle he came up with was, number 1, stress plus rest equals growth. It's fairly straightforward, sometimes very difficult to apply. So the idea is to really put yourself in pressure cooker situations, incubators, to really push, and then rest to allow your mind and your body to integrate that stress. We often talk about this notion of the principle of oscillation, working really hard and then backing off. Really, we're wired to sort of work and behave that way. And so the first principle, stress plus rest equals growth. The second principle is focus on process, not results. And again, the best athletes and entrepreneurs out there know how to do that intuitively. We can have really big, audacious goals that we want to achieve, but the top performers know that it's the incremental small steps that we take each and every day that will get them to that ultimate goal. And research shows that concentrating on process is not only better for performance, but it's also better for mental health. Number 3 is stay humble. Humility is critical, and really what he's talking about there is the humility to understand that you don't know everything. You may be very gifted at what you do. You may be very successful, but there's still things for you to learn, and you can learn from anyone. Everyone out there has a unique story and circumstances where there's some lesson embedded in those things. And so knowledge is always evolving, it's advancing, and so you want to keep an open mind. So I think that's a great principle. Point number 4, build your tribe. And so that's a very popular term in the culture these days, but essentially what he's talking about is try to build a group of people around you that share your values and maybe hold you accountable, that can speak, the truth to you. And the research says if you can do that, it's just going to lift your effectiveness. And so be attentive to the people that you're spending time with in terms of that principle. Point number 5, take small, consistent steps to achieve big gains. Kind of like the process, little steps is like, looking at point number 2, which is focus on process, not results. Part of that focusing on process is take small, consistent steps to achieve big gains. Don't get overwhelmed with that big goal. A lot of us have really big goals that we're trying to achieve personally and professionally. I remember a number of years ago I did 3 Ironman races in 4 years and had to do a ton of training to get ready for them. Each single race I did faster and faster. I never hit my ultimate goal, but my fastest time was around 10 hours and 28 minutes, which when I look back at that now, it's actually a pretty good time. And if I'd just been focused on the time, I would have been overwhelmed. So I focused on the daily, weekly, monthly training to get me there. And so I focus on those small, consistent steps. Number 6, be a minimalist to be a maximalist. Again, a very hard principle to apply in real life. In other words, learning what your unique abilities are, what your gifts are, and applying them in a way that really allows you to be effective and move in the direction that you want to be moving in terms of goals and accomplishing things. Learning to say no to things and yes to the things that are really core to your strength and ability. And truly the great performers know how to do that, so it's an important one. Number 7, make the hard things easier. So willpower is really overrated. I think we all know that. And so try to organize your life so that you leverage off the fact that for example, there's some times when maybe you're more productive. It might be in the mornings. Maybe you're distracted by your cell phone or your smartphone. So don't leave it in the room when you're trying to get work done. Maybe you are a little bit weak in your self-discipline later in the day in terms of snacks and treats and that kind of thing. Well, don't keep them in your house. You get the idea. Okay, so make the hard thing easier. And then number 8, which is the last one, is remember to experience joy. So again, who doesn't want to experience joy? But there's a lot of type A people out there that don't pause to celebrate milestones, to just have fun and to enjoy themselves. And so when we want to celebrate milestones, we want to book that into our schedules, we want to make sure that we decompress and take advantage of those moments to relive happy memories. And those experiences, those happy memories are really, really important, and they help with overall resilience when it comes to those hard and difficult times. Remembering those great times just adds to our resilience equation. Well, I hope you enjoyed this edition of the podcast. Now, if you lead teams, if you're an organizational leader, and you're intrigued with the idea of enhancing professional and personal resilience so that your teams can be more effective, healthier, more fulfilled at work, then reach out to us. We'd love to start a conversation about our programs and how we can customize the delivery of those programs for your organization. If you look below in this blog post, you'll see contact information. Anyway, all the best. Be resilient.